It's Tuesday, September 28. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. The COVID-19 pandemic was the centerpiece of Prime Minister Andrew Holness's address at Tuesday's United Nations high-level virtual event. The event zeroed in on jobs and social protection for poverty eradication and sustainable recovery. Speaking in the capacity as co-convener, Mr. Holness called for greater equity to finance and tackle issues of the digital divide between nations. Gabriel Thompson takes us through that story.
In his address, Mr. Holness spoke to the development of financing in the advent of the COVID-19 era. He said the global pandemic has brought the need for equitable access to finance into sharp focus.
The multiple challenges associated with the COVID-19 pandemic have placed severe pressure on our fiscal accounts, threatening our hard-won macroeconomic stability. The pandemic has demonstrated how quickly our development gains can be eroded, and that much more needs to be done by the international community to secure a resilient future for the most vulnerable. We must retain hope in our ability to meet the targets for the SDGs, even with adjusted timelines. Mr. President, last year, along with the Prime Minister of Canada and the UN Secretary General and other heads of state and government and key international partners, I convened the Financing for Development in the Era of COVID-19 and Beyond initiative. The outcome was ambitious, yet practical, with policy options to support COVID-19 response and recovery for consideration by the international community. It now remains for us to take action.
Mr. Holness said the pandemic has also underscored the need for greater digital inclusivity for nations.
We believe that countries should be supported in their efforts to build robust and resilient digital infrastructure. Public investments of this sort can serve as a force multiplier in narrowing the gaps that result in inequitable development outcomes. Universal, secure, and affordable digital connectivity is needed to ensure inclusive and sustainable development. We, therefore, advocate for an increased digital alliance within the global community and support the UN Secretary General's high-level panel on the Digital Cooperation Roadmap.
The event was chaired by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Several heads of state and multi-world leading agency heads and stakeholders took part in the high-level meeting. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Gabriel Thompson.
Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says a significant portion of the country's stock of 60,000 doses of AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine might have to be discarded if they're not used in the stipulated time period. He voiced this caution while speaking at Monday's virtual ceremony, where agreements with 11 private entities were signed to support the rollout of the national vaccination program. Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says he's open to the idea of partnering with private entities to utilize the mobile COVID-19 units. He shared the idea while speaking at a virtual ceremony where he signed agreements with 11 private entities to support the rollout of the national vaccination program.
Frankly speaking, with the addition of so many fixed sites now, the buses are more appropriate and should be more targeted on rural areas and rural communities. I mean, we had a mobile unit at Fontana, for example, on Waterloo Road, the first exposure to the branded vaccine bus, and there'll be no need for it anymore, as Fontana is a site, for example. So what we need to do is to get off the beaten track, go into those communities where logistics are challenging, where we need to convince, and bring those buses in. We would like to see over time two things, and I'm going to close now because I know the signing is ready to go. We would like to see over time these entities or others taking the vaccines to locations. So while you have fixed sites, and those fixed sites provide all the procedures, we do note that it may be easier in many instances for those seeking to get vaccinated or those we would like to convince And we are doing that now to go to a location where you may have 50, 100, 200 workers, for example, or a church on a Sunday where the pastor might arrange something for people to get vaccinated. We want the vaccination process to be easy. We want to take it to the people, basically.
Dr. Tufton also shared some of the set responsibilities of the private entities as they administer vaccines.
They are to counsel vaccine clients about the COVID-19 vaccine before vaccination. They are to do observation post-administration of the vaccines. They are to have systems and protocols in place to handle possible urgent adverse events following vaccination, and to secure sufficient quantities of vaccine associated with supplies such as personal protective equipment and specialized storage equipment, and to maintain a steady supply stream for the delivery of the services.
The Health and Wellness Minister says new entities should do more than just administer COVID-19 vaccines.
We would want to see these new entities coming on board, not just as administrators of vaccines, but persuaders to promote the vaccination program and the benefits of vaccines. We don't want you to just be a facilitator. We want you to be an advocate, because clearly you wouldn't be doing this if you didn't believe in the vaccine program. I'm trusting that all of you have been vaccinated, by the way. We need to convince Jamaicans.
The National Security Ministry has plans to establish a forensic mental health care program. So says Minister without portfolio in that ministry, Senator Matthew Samuda. He shared the details during his contribution to the 2021-2022 State of the Nation debate in the Senate on Friday. Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of National Security, Senator Matthew Samuda, says about 262 inmates have been diagnosed with mental disorders, 138 of which are unfit to plea, accounting for approximately 7% of the incarcerated population. However, this figure mostly represents those with psychotic disorders.
We know that a greater proportion suffer from less apparent psychiatric conditions that go undiagnosed. Global studies suggest that incarcerated people are 2 to 3 times more likely to have a mental disorder and 15 times more likely to have a psychotic disorder than the general public.
Minister Samuda notes that some of the challenges faced by the Department of Correctional Services are systematic.
Those deemed unfit to plea have been essentially held in custody indefinitely, as they are unable to undergo trial and complete the judicial process. The correctional system in Jamaica, however, is not presently suited to the proper care of mentally ill, as it has inadequacies in personnel, programs, and physical infrastructure to ensure adequate treatment of the medical conditions and the eventual assessment and reintegration of unfit to plea inmates and convicts into society.
Minister Samuda says the DCS continues to work to improve the care within the system, and that's where forensic mental health care comes in.
DCS has been authorized to hire an additional consultant forensic psychiatrist who will design and oversee a forensic mental health care program, Mr. President. But beyond that, we have started the process of reversing a tragic mistake made in the 1970s when the then government closed a forensic ward that housed inmates in need of psychiatric care. And the truth is, both sides kicked the can down the road. Our ministry has initiated the planning process with the Ministry of Health and Wellness and the Ministry of Local Government, it should read rather, to reopen a proper forensic ward to be completed within this term of government.
He furthers that the DCS is following its legal and moral obligations to provide reports to the courts while taking steps to seek the release of the mentally ill where it is deemed appropriate. The Ministry of Health and Wellness will be extending clinic hours for the treatment of persons living with HIV. Acting Director of the Treatment, Care and Support component of the HIV/STI unit at the Ministry, Dr. Rebecca Hoylett Duncan, says the clinic hours were impacted owing to the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic. She says patients were also set to benefit from integration of patient care, which is geared towards decreasing stigma and discrimination, as persons will now go to facilities where chronic illnesses such as hypertension and diabetes are treated. Dr. Duncan made the announcement in a recent JIS interview. The Office of Utilities Regulation, OUR, is investigating reports of frequent power outages from several communities across the island. In a release, the agency says customer complaints have come from Clarendon, Kingston and St Andrew, St Catherine and Trelawney. The OUR says it wrote to the Jamaica Public Service Company, JPS, requesting information that can assist in its probe, and it's awaiting response. In the meantime, the OUR states in release that it has not, quote, approved any policy or measure that would see the use of outages as a means to control electricity losses, end quote. The Kingston and St Andrew Municipal Corporation, KSAMC, is working to mitigate the issue of flooding in several corporate area communities due to overflowing of the Chalky River. Kingston's Mayor, Senator Councillor Delroy Williams, says the KSAMC is receiving technical support in the undertaking from the National Water Commission, the NWC. The National Works Agency has also been engaged. Speaking at the monthly meeting of the KSAMC, Mayor Williams said that the NWC has been asked to design a structure to prevent the breach along the Chalky River. We now get an update on the latest shifts and movements in some of the local and international markets. Here's the business report.
In foreign exchange trading for Monday, September 27, the US dollar sold for an average $149.27. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $118.62. The pound sterling traded for $206.31, and the euro sold for an average $175.75. In Monday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index advanced by 2,194 points to close at over 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 94 stocks, of which 49 advanced, 35 declined, and 10 traded firm. The Junior Market Index advanced by 36 points to close at over 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, 138 Student Living Jamaica Variable Preference, and Barita Investments Limited. Stocks declined for 1834 Investments Limited, AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, and Blue Power Group Limited. Trading firm were Consolidated Bakers Jamaica Limited, Future Energy Source Company Limited Ordinary Shares, and Iron Rock Insurance Company Limited. Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited USD was the volume leader with over 30.6 million units, followed by Honeybun Limited with over 6 million units, and Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited with over 2.8 million units. Oil markets climbed for a sixth day on Tuesday, boosted by a tighter supply and firm demand outlook, but power shortages in China, which hit factory output, tempered the rally. Brent crude futures gained 67 cents to $80.20 a barrel after reaching their highest level since October 2018 at $80.75. Brent gained 1.8% on Monday. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 79 cents to $76.24 a barrel after hitting a session high of $76.67, its highest since early July. It jumped 2% the previous day. And that does it for this Tuesday edition of the Business Report inside the news on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson. Pleasant viewing.
Over now to regional news. In Trinidad and Tobago, vaccination and strict adherence to the COVID-19 protocols continue to be the main strategies to prevent the spread of the virus. The country's chief medical officer urged the population to follow both since the Delta variant has been detected in that country. Kimberly D'Souza tells us more.
Since the news that 6 new Delta cases were detected in the country, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Roshan Parasram confirmed the variant is in the early stages of community spread. Dr. Parsram said 5 of the new cases had no travel-related history.
4 of them related to different positives from before, so they would have been contacts of other positive cases. Those cases themselves have not been deemed Delta as yet. Of course, testing is ongoing.
The CMO said the 5th case is pending epidemiological investigation. He added that these 5 patients had little to no symptoms of the COVID-19 virus.
The majority of them seem to be asymptomatic, and the reason we picked up those 4 cases is because of their relation to the other positives. We would have tested and used the new criteria and of course sent it onwards for Delta.
Dr. Parsram confirmed the Delta variant is difficult to detect and moves easily throughout the population. The virus has since been detected in various counties.
I think we would have said before there was 1 case in St George West, there was 1 case in St George East. We now have cases in County Caroni. We're picking up cases in St Patrick, I believe, as well as and Victoria. So generally speaking, the cases will mirror where you have your positive cases in the country.
The CMO confirmed the majority of Delta patients are at home, except for a few who have been placed in isolation to prevent a risk of spread. As of Sunday night, there are 17 confirmed cases of the Delta variant in the country. Kimberly D'Souza, TTT News.
In Guyana, 10 more COVID-19 deaths were added to the death toll on Monday. This takes the number of fatalities recorded in the past 26 days to 147. The government says it is putting systems in place to cater for an increase in hospitalizations. Gordon Mosley reports.
10 more COVID-19 deaths were added today to the death toll from the virus in Guyana, taking the total number of deaths recorded in the past 26 days to 147. According to the Ministry of Health, 7 of the 10 recently announced deaths were unvaccinated persons. 1 person was fully vaccinated, another was partially vaccinated, and the vaccination status of the 10th person is unknown. September has shot to the front as the deadliest month for the pandemic in Guyana, and the month with the highest number of new cases. Over 5,600 new cases of the virus have been detected since the 1st of September. Additionally, regions 3 and 4 continue to be the hotspot regions for the virus, with more than 80% of the new cases being confirmed in the 2 regions. The Health Ministry is warning, however, that every region has active cases. There are 3,877 active cases in the country, with 30 persons still in the COVID-19 intensive care unit.
We have seen at our hospitals, we currently have 131 persons in hospitals. We have 83 right now at the Ocean View facility, with 30 persons being in the ICU. We also have in the other hospitals, we still have persons in Region 1 at Port Kaituma. We have 3 persons at Suddy. We have 10 persons at West Demerara Hospital. We have another 10 persons in Maikoni. We have 1 person in Skeldon, 2 persons in Bartica, 1 in Madhya, and 10 persons at the Wisma Hospital. So these are our hospitalizations currently. We also have 5 maternal cases at the Ocean View facility, and we have 10 women who are pregnant and they also have COVID at the Georgetown Hospital.
The ongoing COVID surge in the country appears out of control. The main opposition APNU-AFC is calling on the government to act fast to reset its COVID-19 strategy as the new cases and deaths continue to touch every region.
The lockdown and serious curfew arrangements need to be put in place. So that is why we are saying that it is important, and we understand the impact, the economic impact that it would have on businesses, etc. But it requires a different approach, an inclusive approach, and the government's resistance should go away, and let us proceed with some of the plans which they inherited. Things may have changed some degree, but that is very, very critical at this point in time.
The government has indicated that it is putting systems in place to cater for an increase in hospitalizations as the positive cases continue to climb.
In St. Lucia, the uptick in the number of people getting vaccinated against COVID-19 continued on the weekend, with the result being a further progress toward herd immunity. The buzz of activity comes in the wake of government's vaccine mandates for employees in the public service. 2 additional sites were opened over the weekend to ensure more people get vaccinated against COVID-19. Jessica Russell reports on the turnout.
People have come out to weekend vaccination sites mentioning different reasons for getting vaccinated against COVID-19.
I decided to get vaccinated my own choice because I have a daughter now, so I have to look towards the future. Everybody needs to get vaccinated so the country can flow better and so the economy can go back up and everybody live happily.
My job was on the line. Apart from that, everyone is on the chain. All my family took it. I think it's the best decision for me right now in this time. Right now, the pandemic ain't no joke.
2 men speaking at the Sonoville Richards Academy, which opened for the first time on a weekend to accommodate the government's COVID-19 vaccination campaign. Cleo Foster Harris is the location site manager.
Yesterday was a brilliant day. We had close to 150 persons, and that was mostly in the morning. And this morning so far, today Sunday, we have their numbers are not as much as we expect yet, but the numbers has been going good.
The Multi-Purpose Cultural Center was also open on Saturday and Sunday. This man brought his 16-year-old son to get the jab. Pfizer-BioNTech's vaccine is the only one approved for minors.
Well, he's the one that was behind me because he wanted to go to school. He don't want to stay home, he want to be at school.
The American University of Antigua has been used occasionally on weekends as a vaccination site. Angelica O'Donoghue, who's a part of the COVID-19 vaccine rollout team, says there's been less traffic at AUA, with other locations being open.
Things have been pretty smooth. We're going pretty fast, necessarily a significant backlog like usually, and that may be because we have 2 additional vaccine sites that are open up for the weekend. We had 847 vaccinations between the 3 sites on Saturday, and we are thinking that we may have the same amount of persons today.
Final figures show 710 people were vaccinated today across the centers. In total, 1,557 people were vaccinated this weekend. Jessica Russell, ABS News.
As we turn to sports, we look to football. First choice goalkeeper for Tivoli Gardens Football Club, Kiwan Watkins, was shown a red card during the first leg semi-final with Cavalier Football Club on Saturday. Watkins was carded by the referee for violent conduct. He allegedly attacked a Cavalier player after the final whistle had been blown and will now miss the return leg semi-final at the UWI-JFF Captain Horace Burrell Center of Excellence on Wednesday. Tivoli Gardens head coach Philip Williams lamented that his player needed to exhibit more discipline. The West Kingston-based Tivoli Gardens trail the 2-legged tie at 0-1 going into the second semi-final match. And with that, we have gone to the end of the newscast. Thanks so very much for watching PBCJ. Remember, we are the People's Station.